If you have already seen the clip of Jimin taking off his jacket in the middle of a BTS concert in Toronto, stop scrolling for 1 second, because what happened right before that moment is the part almost nobody is actually talking about. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this one gesture, in the middle of a storm, in a city BTS had not performed in for 11 years, is being called one of the most human moments of the entire ARIRANG World Tour. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we are about to break this down piece by piece, and trust me, you do not want to miss what comes next. Let's set the scene first, because context is everything here. BTS brought their ARIRANG World Tour to Toronto for 2 nights, August 22nd and August 23rd, 2026 at Rogers Stadium. This was not just another stop on a massive world tour that has already crossed more than 20 countries. This was BTS returning to Toronto for the first time in 11 years. 11 years. Think about that for a second. Fans who were teenagers the last time BTS played the city showed up as adults, some flying in from other provinces, some who had waited literally more than a decade just to be in the same room as these 7 men again. The emotional stakes going into these 2 shows were already sky high before a single note was played. And then the weather decided to make things even more intense. Toronto that weekend was hit with exactly the kind of conditions you do not want for an outdoor stadium show: heavy rain, strong wind, and temperatures that dropped hard once the sun went down. This is an open-air venue, which means there is no roof, no shelter, nothing standing between 50,000 people and the sky except whatever they brought with them. Fans had been lining up since the morning, some camping out for hours just to get close to the barricade, and by the time the show actually started, a lot of them were already soaked and cold. Now here's where it gets interesting, because Jimin noticed. On the first night, during his closing remarks to the crowd, he addressed the weather directly. He talked about how heavy the rain had been that evening, and he expressed real concern that fans might end up getting sick after standing out in it for so long. This was not a scripted, generic thank you for coming moment. He specifically brought up how long it had been since BTS performed in Canada, and he talked about wanting to come back again in the future, so they could sing and dance together like this once more. He thanked the crowd for pushing through the weather to be there, and he told them to make sure they got home safely. The very next night, August 23rd, the story repeated itself, except this time it was the wind and the cold that took center stage instead of the rain. Jimin brought it up again. He acknowledged how tough the conditions were for the second night in a row, and once again he voiced that same concern, that fans might catch a cold from being out there for hours in that kind of weather. 2 nights in a row, unprompted, he is standing on that stage thinking about the physical well-being of the people standing in the crowd instead of just wrapping up the show and heading backstage. That is not something every performer does, and if you have been following this tour, you already know this is becoming a pattern with him specifically. So that is the confirmed, on-record context. 2 nights of brutal weather, and a member of one of the biggest groups on the planet standing on stage, actively worried about the people who came to see him. Now let's talk about the moment that actually blew up online, the one this video's title is about, the jacket. Clips began circulating from fans who attended the Toronto shows, showing Jimin taking off his own stage jacket and getting it to a fan in the crowd who appeared to be visibly cold. The footage spread fast across social media, shared and reshared by fan accounts, translated, clipped, and reposted within hours. And here is where we have to be honest with you, because we are not in the business of feeding you hype without substance. At the time this video is being made, the exact context of what led up to that specific handoff, meaning precisely what was said in that moment right before the jacket came off, has not been confirmed through an official source or a major outlet. What we do know for certain and on record, from his own words to the crowd on both nights, is that he was clearly and repeatedly thinking about the cold and the wet conditions fans were dealing with. Whether the jacket moment was a direct continuation of that same concern playing out in real time in front of him, which is exactly what it looks like in the footage, is what has fans so captivated, because it lines up perfectly with everything he had just finished saying out loud to the entire stadium. And if this feels familiar to some of you, that is because it should. This is not the first time something like this has happened on this exact tour. Rewind back to July 12th, in Munich, Germany, during another stop on the ARIRANG World Tour. Jimin was performing Blood, Sweat, and Tears when he spotted a sign held up by a fan in the crowd. The sign told a story on its own, She had waited 9 years for this moment, and she had traveled all the way from Barcelona just to be there. Jimin read it, and instead of just acknowledging it with a wave or a smile like most artists would, he made a decision in real time, in the middle of a live performance, to take off his own jacket and have security carry it directly to her in the crowd. This was fully documented, captured on multiple cameras, and confirmed by the fan herself afterward. She later posted publicly thanking him, saying that after 9 years, her dream had finally come true in a way she never imagined, and that she was grateful to the group for shaping who she had become. That single moment in Munich sparked a wave of reactions online, some of it pure joy from fans celebrating how personal and spontaneous the gesture felt, and yes, there was also a small amount of unnecessary criticism from people questioning why she specifically was chosen, since she happened to be wearing merchandise from a different member. But the overwhelming response from the fandom was the same thing you are probably thinking right now, that this was simply Jimin being Jimin, noticing someone, and acting on it without overthinking whether it made sense or not. So now fast forward from Munich to Toronto, and you start to see something bigger forming. This is not a random one-off. This is starting to look like a genuine pattern of behavior from someone who, night after night, city after city, on a tour with dozens of stops across multiple continents, keeps choosing to make these small, deeply personal moments happen in the middle of massive, chaotic, high-production stadium shows. Out of everything he could focus on in a given night, the choreography, the vocals, the pyrotechnics, the pure exhaustion of performing for tens of thousands of people, he is still clocking individual people in the crowd. A sign, a shivering fan, a specific request, and he is stopping to do something about it. Speaking of specific requests, let's talk about something else that happened during those same 2 Toronto nights, because it adds even more weight to everything we just covered. During one of the shows, a fan held up a sign asking Jimin to perform his solo track Filter, which originally came from BTS's 2020 album Map of the Soul 7. Jimin spotted the sign while he was asking the crowd what they wanted to hear, and without hesitation, he broke into a short section of the song right there on the spot, adding in some of the original choreography for just a few seconds before moving on. It was brief, it was completely unplanned, but it was enough to send fans into a frenzy online, with people saying things like they need a full solo tour from him immediately, because moments like this prove how much he still has connected to those songs even years later. Put all of that together, the weather concern speeches on both nights, the jacket moment that fans are still piecing together the full story of, and the spontaneous Filter performance, and you start to understand why Toronto specifically is being talked about as one of the most emotionally loaded stops on this entire world tour. This was not just a concert. For 2 nights, in the pouring rain and the biting cold, Jimin turned a massive stadium show into something that felt personal to the people standing in that crowd. And here's the thing that makes this even more remarkable when you zoom out. This is happening in the middle of an 85-date world tour spanning 34 cities across 23 countries. This is not a small headline show where an artist has the energy and the luxury to focus on individual fan interactions. This is stop after stop, city after city, on a schedule so demanding that most performers would understandably be running on autopilot by this point just to get through the set list. And yet here he is in Toronto, after presumably being exhausted from back-to-back shows, still finding it in himself to notice one specific person shivering in the crowd and do something about it. That is really what this video is about. It is not just about a jacket. It is about what that jacket represents. In a touring machine this massive, with this much production, this many moving parts, this much pressure, the fact that these small human moments keep happening over and over across different countries, different languages, different crowds, tells you something real about the person doing it. You cannot fake that kind of consistency. You can fake one moment for one show. You cannot fake the same instinct showing up in Munich in July and again in Toronto in August, months apart, thousands of miles apart, in front of completely different audiences who have no idea what happened in the other city. Now, we want to be responsible with you here, because that is what separates a channel actually trying to give you real information from one just chasing clicks with no substance behind it. The viral clip of the jacket moment in Toronto is real, it is circulating, and it is consistent with everything Jimin said out loud on that stage about being worried for the crowd's well-being. But the specific detail of exactly what triggered it in that exact second, whether it was a sign, a visible reaction from the fan, something said between them, has not been laid out in full by an official source at the time this video was made. What is fully confirmed on record, from his own mouth, on both nights, is the concern itself. So when you watch that clip, know that what you are seeing lines up directly with what he had just finished telling an entire stadium he was thinking about. If you are new here, and you are wondering why any of this matters, let us give you a little more context on who we are talking about. Jimin is one of 7 members of BTS, one of the most successful groups in music history, and he has built a reputation, tour after tour, year after year, for exactly this kind of attentiveness toward fans. This is a guy who, during a Bain de Foule-style crowd run in Paris earlier this year, made a point of physically getting close to as many people as possible. This is someone who has been photographed catching a fan's custom Dior look, who at Christie's auction his actual World Cup jersey for charity, where it outbid items from artists like Messi and Madonna, and who consistently shows up in stories, not because of a scandal or controversy, but because of small, human choices that keep adding up. So when you put the Toronto jacket moment into that larger context, it stops looking like an isolated viral clip and starts looking like exactly who this person has shown himself to be, over and over, on the biggest stages in the world. Now let's talk about what happens next, because this tour is far from over. The North American leg alone has already taken BTS through cities like Baltimore, Arlington, Foxborough, and East Rutherford before landing in Toronto, and there are still more stops ahead before this leg wraps up in early September. If Toronto is any indication, and honestly, if the pattern we just walked you through from Munich to Toronto tells us anything, there is a very real chance we have not seen the last of these moments on this tour. Every single stop from here on out is another opportunity for something like this to happen again, caught on someone's phone, shared within minutes, and turning into exactly the kind of story we just told you. That is exactly why you need to be subscribed to this channel right now, with notifications turned on, because we are covering every single one of these moments as they happen, breaking down what is confirmed, what is still circulating and unverified, and giving you the full picture instead of just a 15-second clip with no context. If you are the kind of person who wants to actually understand what is happening on this tour instead of just seeing random clips pop up on your feed with zero background, this channel is exactly where you need to be. Before you go, we want to hear from you directly. Down in the comments, tell us honestly, do you think this is becoming a real pattern with Jimin specifically, or do you think we are reading too much into a handful of moments spread across a massive world tour? Do you think the Toronto jacket moment and the Munich jacket moment are connected in the way it looks like they are, or are they just two separate things that happen to look similar from the outside? We genuinely want to know what you think, because this fandom has some of the sharpest, most detail-oriented viewers on the entire platform, and honestly, some of you probably know details about this moment that have not even made it into mainstream coverage yet. If this video gave you the full picture you were looking for, do us a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are just discovering BTS and Jimin for the first time and have no idea what they have been missing. Share this with a friend who still has not figured out why this fandom is so massive, because moments like this Toronto night are exactly the kind of thing that turns a casual viewer into someone who understands the hype completely. And if you want to see exactly how this story continues, whether it is the next tour stop, more confirmed details about what actually happened in that Toronto crowd, or the next moment that has fans talking, make sure that subscribe button is clicked and that bell is turned on, because we are not going anywhere and neither is the story. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one.